start listening before too far it's gone far.
All right. You guys sing and do that. I could sit there all afternoon, just have a full hour-long concert. But then I gotta speak. So I'm a fourth-generation classical Pentecostal preacher. Can you believe that? It's like a generational curse that hasn't been broken. Thank you for being here today. Nice crowd this morning. This is one of those good sleep-in mornings. I'm surprised you're here. Thank you. We don't have long to talk, but and I always write way more than I get to share because I'm writing for posterity that when I'm gone, my thoughts will remain. I've been downloading like crazy just the last few years, and we're going through such a major shift in consciousness as a culture and as a country. I personally believe that the species is being upgraded, the human species is being upgraded. And that the universe is correcting itself. Anything from global warming to all the other things that seem unstable. There's a major shift in 2023, may be a watershed year when some of the most radical and dramatic changes that have ever taken place in the history of the nation, and maybe the world, will occur. Now that sounds a bit obtrusive, but just stay tuned, because shift is happening. Shift does happen, you know, S-H-I-F-T. Turn to someone and say, shift happens. Turn to someone and say, shift happens. And say, get your shift together. Tell them why. I chose the topic, and I was going to share at the beginning of the year. This is African American History Month. We used to call it Black History Month. It was Black History Week, Black History Day. The Black history, if you're black, is a different type of feeling. Why is it important? It's really American history. We call it African American history. I'm really not an African American. I'm an American African. An African American is somebody that was born in Africa and migrated here or immigrated here. I'm for many, many generations, so there are certain Africans that were born here several generations, and so we are American Africans. There are Asian Americans and Hispanic Americans, and then there's American whatever. Our experience of blackness is different than the experience on the continent of Africa or even in the Caribbean, where they are the majority. All my life, I've heard that I'm minor, low income, ghetto. When you hear that all your life, you accept it as a reality. You accept, whether you like it or not, that you are not only other than, but less than. One of the things that's happening in America right now among white Americans is they're becoming a minority. Psychologically, that's different. It wouldn't be as much of an issue for more radically thinking people like you, Unitarian Universalists. You're in a progressive group. I love being among you. Need a little bit more color among you, but I'm glad that you're here. We're working on it. The dictionary definition of white supremacy, and you hear a lot about it, is the belief that white people, more specifically I would add WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, constitute a superior race and should therefore dominate society, typically to the exclusion or even the detriment of other racial and ethnic groups. I don't know that anybody here has ever experienced that or felt that way. You're usually not in that category. I salute you. I salute the Unitarian Universalist mentality. For many, many years in this country, I think it goes unmentioned. It shouldn't, because this group, this particular denomination, has been on the forefront of human rights. I'm titling this Civil Rights versus Civil War. The key word is civil. The Civil War was not civil, except that it was citizens warring against citizens. It's the worst war that ever occurred in American history. More Americans were killed, over 600,000, 2 million injured, than any other war, and all the wars combined. We're as close to a civil war than we've been since 200 years ago, or in the 1800s, 1861. There are more guns in America than there are people. And many of them are assault weapons. And when you arm your country with assault weapons, the country assaults itself. And there's so much anger. 23 states don't even require licensure. You can carry a gun. Some places you can carry it openly, like cowboy days. I used to play cowboys and Indians. We were taught, even as little black people, that Indians were savages. I heard that. Little black Sambo. I didn't think that much of it. I hadn't been to Africa. I thought all Africans swung from trees too. When you live in a culture, it's called conditioned thinking. And you begin to feel like many Christians, and I was in the fundamentalist evangelical Christian world pretty much all my life. And then I changed my attitude, my theology. Some people say, why did you change your mind? I didn't really change my mind. My mind changed me. I started rethinking things. What do you believe? Why do you believe it? And how do those beliefs add to or subtract from the quality of your life? How do you experience yourself in this world? I often use the example that if you say you love somebody, you're saying you love the part of yourself that manifests when you're with them. I love my mom. I love what I feel about me more than what I feel about her when I'm with her. The same principle if you say, I can't stand so-and-so. You're saying, I cannot stand how I feel about me when I'm with that person. So the only person you'll ever love, not love, like, or not like is you. Love is really a very selfish term, not in a negative sense. When I love my daughter and my son and my wife and my children, my parents, I get a certain fulfillment, a certain emotional high when I get to do kind things for them. And I think that's important, or we might not even do those things, kind things for people, if you didn't get a certain feeling. It's interesting for you to reassess how you experience yourself in the presence of the people with whom you are most familiar. What do you like or dislike about being you? Is there an arrogance or a feeling of superiority? White supremacists struggle with the opposite ideology. They believe that they might not be supreme, so they have to emphasize it. It's a self-worth issue. I don't have to say I'm supreme unless I feel that I might not be, or that you think I'm not, or that I'm superior unless I'm threatened with inferiority. Now, I'm comfortable with that feeling because I've been told all my life. We were taught that Cain, the curse on Cain, for any of you who might know the Bible, which are probably 2 or 3 of you, but in the scriptures, Cain was turned, I was told by white people, and it made a little bit of sense because all the pictures of Jesus I saw were white. All the pictures of angels I saw were white. All the pictures of God I saw were white. There's white, clean white cloth, tablecloths, bed sheets, even the White House, where the authority in the country is. Angel food cake was vanilla. Devil's food cake was chocolate. Darkness, evil, even the term Eve. Her name in Hebrew is Chava, but the King James Version translated Eve, suggesting evil or evening or darkness. The whole idea of women being inferior to men or females being inferior to, that's largely in religious circles. So we all have this territorialist, tribalist mentality. The caste system, and a caste is something you put on you to keep your arm from moving or from changing position. Caste systems means the poor must remain in their lane, poor. The rich must remain rich. The middle class remains middle class. Caste systems, they're still in place. Parties, partisanship, We've never seen such plurality and animosity and less civilized conversation in America. Donald Trump released an uncivilized, narcissistic, fascist, I don't give a damn attitude in this country at a level that we've never seen corporately. People have gotten arrogant, and to be civil means that you're courteous and kind and gentle and tolerant and forgiving. But this I'm me thing is nasty. And it has swept our country at levels. And now to arm that spirit with guns, and people are so angry and tense and anxious. We've had more mass killings in America this year than we've had days. And that's just the ones they tell us about. What do you expect? If you arm your nation with what's the term for armed? Assault weapons, then the nation's going to assault itself. I'm a pretty pacifistic dude. I mean, I love peace. But I've never felt such anger, such hurt, such resentment, such suspicion. I've never been a racist type people or prejudging, but every white person I see in Oklahoma, I presume, voted for Trump and hates me. I've actually found myself prejudging people I don't even know, presuming, for years I thought if somebody had a southern accent, white, that they were racist. And many of them were, maybe most of them. When I first came to Oklahoma and I made a phone call from Southern California, I was born in San Diego, I never heard an operator speak with a Southern accent. That was Andy of Mayberry. I thought had this meant, that's a prejudgment, prejudicial. I was prejudging the operator to hate me. She didn't know my race. She didn't know my name. She didn't know my ethnicity. She didn't know my gender. But I assumed because of her accent that she probably hated me. Racism isn't just among white people or any particular, as long as there are racists, there's going to be racism. How can we convert civil war to civil rights? Why is there a war about rights? It just means equity. The number one inequity on the planet is the number one iniquity. The iniquity is inequity. Fairness and equality is not the same. Like, for instance, I remember thinking when I got married and had my little children, I ate a certain amount. My portion on my plate was different than Gina's, my wife, and our portion was different from Julian, my son, who was a baby, and then Majesty. We had our fair share, not necessarily equal share. There may never be equality in the sense that in some aspects of our experience, but there should at least be fairness. Reparations, nobody's going to pay us back, not really, with monetary for every black person in America or every Native American. They were burglarized. They were vandalized. They were raped. They were diseased and contaminated with diseases from Europe that Native Americans had never experienced. You don't hear a lot about it. They're very quiet. It's almost they're numbed. A lot of white people think, not all of course, but a lot of white people think we are so angry that if we get in power, we're going to do to you what you did to us. When I say you, I don't mean you individually. I mean culturally. I've never had a conversation with any person of color that wants revenge. We don't want to get you back. That would be nothing but bloodshed. I would never do to you what I've heard was done to us. It wasn't done to me personally. It wasn't done to my parents personally. It wasn't even done to my grandparents or my great-great-grandparents that were slaves. I had few conversations with them, but I heard it. And the kinds of things that we heard does cause anger. Now, the Civil War came out of the concept of white Southern Christians. They wanted slaves for monetary. It was called slave trade. Not just slaves. It was monetary. The love of money is the root of all evil, Scripture says, but so is the lack of money. When you don't have enough money, you're going to steal or rob or lie or do whatever you can to survive. But as an evangelical Christian all my life, I had to stop and think the whole concept of the King James 16th century English saying, go ye into all the world and preach or reach the gospel to every creature. A creature in the English language is not human. A creature is a critter or a rodent or sometimes a monster. In some people's mind, people of color are not human. And it's not their fault alone, but when you've been handed down that mentality all your life for hundreds of years, it's a presumption. If I say one of my friends, white friends, one of my closest friends was called a son of white privilege. He's very integrated, has an integrated friend, grew up around people of color. His church is predominantly black. And so when one of my friends said that he was a son of white privilege, it really insulted him because he didn't see himself as a son of white privilege. I never really saw him as a person of white privilege, but it's an assumption. Americans have an arrogance about themselves that we are a privileged people. When I travel abroad, and I've done that since 1972, you feel privileged as an American, especially and if you had Christianity, a tax-paying American. I have a right. We over here feel like it's our job to evangelize the world. We own Jesus, evangelical Christians. We own the truth. We own the gospel. We have the keys to the kingdom. We decide who goes to hell and maybe who goes through hell. We decide where the wells are going to be dug and the orphanages are going to be built and the clinics are going to be built. There's an arrogance about white Christians, and there's a difference in Christian witness and Christian whiteness. Christian nationalism is one of the number one threats toward democracy right now. Are y'all hearing me? We have this arrogance that we own the country. And because white people, even with abortion, 50 years ago, when Roe versus Wade was enacted, many white Americans who came out of the rural areas, and everybody had lots of babies because we needed farmhands. 80% of the population was rural 100 years ago, 20% urban. It's the exact opposite today. 80% is urban, 20% rural. So we don't need a lot of farmhands anymore. White women said, we don't need 6 kids and 8 kids and 10 kids. We're going to have 1, maybe 2. So you stopped having babies. People of color, Mexicans and black, we kept having babies. 50 years now, you're the minority almost. For the first time in Oklahoma history, white people are the minority. Does that, you don't know that yet. I know you're going to lose some sleep about it tonight, but I'm telling you, we're fixing to take over. You have African Americans, Native Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans. It's like, now I don't have a problem being a minority. I don't have a problem as much as you might be told to stay in line. White privilege says, you don't tell me to wear a mask. You don't tell me to get shots. You don't force me to do anything. My culture, consciously, are used to being told what to do, so we just do it. We would never stand in front of a state capitol or be allowed to with guns like they did in Michigan. They'd have killed us so fast. Only white folks could get by with January 6th and not die. They never thought about anybody stopping them. Now that many of them are in jail, Trump's still doing his thing. That man played the Christian church like a fiddle. Talk to me, somebody. And he's still playing with America's mind. Some of the smartest people I know are idiots. I'm shocked. Not that he's all bad, but this guy is nuts. He's so uncourteous and so undignified. He's playing the culture. And he's fixing to turn, mark my word, between now and 24, he's going to turn on the Christian church, call them all a bunch of hypocrites, false prophets. I know prophets. We don't have that so much in Unitarianism. Prophets that prophesied he was going to win. He lost by 3 million votes to Hillary, 7 million to Biden. The man never really won by a majority. And he wants to run around. I hope he does. And I hope DeSantis runs so they can make fools of each other. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not quoting the pastor, so don't write him letters. That's my thought. Write me letters because you don't have my address. So, but I'm saying that's why your courage to be a humanist and to be different and to say, I want it differently. I'm not so religious. We need you. We need your voice. We need your choice. We need your attitude. We need your strength. We need you to be active and loud because you make a lot of sense. I wouldn't have said this a few years ago. Seemed like I wouldn't have said it a few days ago. But I'm shifting now. It's been, and Marlon has influenced me a lot. He's one of the smartest, subtly intelligent guys I know. He's from Boston. Thank God he's not from Tulsa. But he has Judaism and Gentile in him. He's an adventurous guy. He's curious. He's expansive. He gets bored easily, and I think that's why I'm here. Can you imagine how bored y'all would be without us? We need shifting. So stay alert, stay on the cutting edge, and remember to be civil. Representing, I got to spend a lot of time with Dr. Wolf before he transitioned, and I got to pick his brain, and he picked mine. I used to hate the dude. I used to think he was the devil. I used to drive by here, as I've said before, and try to cast the devil out of this church. And I ended up getting cast into the church. We were homeless. We were churchless. We had nobody. We had no place. And Marlon comes along. You sent us an offering. Some of you weren't there. When the newspaper announced that we become universalists, y'all sent us an offering. You know we take an offering here every Sunday that goes to somebody? Y'all sent it to us. It wouldn't hurt if you did it again. I didn't get an offering from a Southern Baptist or a Fundamentalist church or a Pentecostal or a Charismatic or all my friends. I got it from the Universalist church. It was the same gender-loving community that brought me in and washed my feet, had me to go preach for their group, Bishop Flunder, out in Phoenix. When I got to preaching, he said, walk among the people and let them hug you. I was shocked. I walked them. Some of them were dying of AIDS, have since died. Many of them weren't, but they filled into the aisle and started hugging me and holding me. Well, quote unquote, and she's from my religious background, Church of God in Christ. Those folks hugged me and loved on me in a way that none of my fundamentalist Christian friends had done. Though these were fundamentalist Christians, but they're not stuck with dogma and doctrine. And it was a cleansing. That's why if you saw the movie Come Sunday, we had that part of that church. There was a healing. The Universalists, whom we demonized, prejudged, embraced us. Episcopalians, who have a service 1 hour. My sermon was 1 hour. The whole service was an hour and lacked nothing. That's what I love. This sermon's supposed to be through, I guess, by now. I like this short preaching stuff. I don't get to say that much, but I prepare it. But a service doesn't have to be eternal to be immortal. Neither does a sermon. My young friend, young Michael Todd out here, he grew up at Higher D. His sermons are 1 hour and 45 minutes long. But mine used to be that long. Praise and worship was 1.5 hours. Then the altar call. Because remember, we were poor people. I'm talking about 100 years ago, 50 years. I'm born in 1953, half of the last century. I'm 23 years into the new century, the new millennium. We were poor. We didn't have a nice, beautiful homes to go to. We didn't fill all the finest restaurants in town. Hot, unair-conditioned homes, tight, small, underprivileged. The only social life we had was church. That's why we were there all day. And our services were loud and vocal. Unlike you'll ever experience here, but somebody would burst, oh, hey, Jesus. All these, a lot of that wasn't the Holy Ghost. It was grief. It was anger. It was pain. And the only place we could scream out was in church. And somebody would rush to you and love on you. We would say it was the Holy Ghost. Sometimes it was just emotion. Commotion. And we made it devotion. Our services were loud. Our response was there. Because there was so much pain. We are all suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress, what? Disorder. The Greek word for wound is trauma. We are a traumatized people, but so are you. From the time you slid out of your mother's womb and went down the birth canal after swimming in water or treading water for 9 months, and all of a sudden you hear your mama screaming, and your daddy said, breathe, if he was there. Or before she started having you, you heard him say, why didn't you use protection? Who taught a baby to self-medicate? Starts bringing its little thumb to its mouth, still in the mother's womb, feeling unwanted and unwelcomed. I did, baby. The kid is feeling those vibes. Our prisons are filled with babies that feel unwelcomed or unwanted on this planet. Some of you in here today perhaps wrestle with that. You heard the negative vibrations of somebody who didn't understand you being here. It didn't feel like you had the permission or the right to come. We all need healing. Now shift the energy around. Just lift your hands because I'm through. Just do like this. You don't have to scream like... I would love it if you guys just started screaming one day and holler. That would just... Or... Usually it has to be a football game or something for you to do it. But I want to say to you again, I welcome your serenity. I welcome your openness. This is a good crowd. I've never been in a church that had a humanist service. Some of you are actually atheists. I'm an atheist who is a theist. I don't believe in a God or the God. I just believe in God, whatever that is or whatever that isn't. I don't know. I don't need a name. I mean ether, essence, some intelligence, something other than the angry guy with a beard and the, you know, and the sandals and the robe and the scepter, who's white. God bless you and God keep you. I told the folks at the last, the best is yet to come. Yeah, let go.
Dreams will take you very far.
Yeah.
When you